Well, great day, everyone, and welcome to Spirit and Mind, where we are committed to discussing current events with faith and mental health perspectives. I'm Bishop Guy Robinson. I'm grateful to be with you today, and it is a blessing to have my colleague with me, Dr. Shepard. Good day to you, Dr. Shepard.
Yes, sir. Good day. Good Sunday. I'm sorry. Good Saturday. I might as well Sunday. Good Saturday to you. Holy Week and celebrated wonderful Good Friday and preparing for Resurrection Sunday. Hopefully, you all are warm out there. It's cold out this way, but I'm doing well. How are you, Bishop?
Good. It's a chilly kind of April here in the Mid Atlantic. Anyway, but busy week, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But we are so grateful that you're with us, and thank you for sharing. Let someone know we're here. That's what I was doing just a few moments ago, sharing and letting persons know that Spirit and Mind is here, and we are looking forward to talking about living our best lives to the glory of God. Continuing in the series, Dr. Shepard, we have a couple updates for our Spirit and Mind family. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We always want to let people know that they can go to watch our previous episodes on spiritandmind.vidflex.tv. And there you can find all previous episodes, spiritandmind.vidflex.tv. And thank you for those who have been watching. Continue to watch, continue to share. We're actually in the process of putting together a marathon. And so we want you to be able to view all the different episodes. We're working, I won't say feverishly, but but we're working hard to put together a graphic and a marathon and let you know when that will be released. We'll let you know next Saturday, and that way you can watch all the episodes together once we have put them all, compiled everything together in a format, and we'll let you know that. So we're working on that. And yeah, Bishop, that really is the only thing I have as far as announcements.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Shepard and Spirit of Mind family. Stay tuned for that. You may, again, the marathon will let you kind of back to back and build upon it in a kind of systemic, day by day kind of way in this Living Your Best Life series. It also will enable persons who may be working during our broadcast time to revisit in a systematic way. And we just want to help people to live their best lives. That's our inspiration and motivation. So stay tuned for that. And again, you can check out our VidFlex TV site. But stay tuned for that marathon, because that's going to lead into, and we'll continue from there and keep building to the glory of God here on Spirit and Mind. So thank you. I see people checking in, and it's so great. I'm so grateful to have you there. I'm just going to read your social media names, so it won't have titles. Forgive me. I'm just reading what's there, but we're so grateful for Shirley Vaughn, Cynthia Hackshaw, Selena Allen, Ada Winfield. Or is it Aida, like the opera?
Yeah, Aida. It's
Ah,
Aida. Yeah.
it's my musical background.
Uh-huh.
So, Maddie Evans, Juanita Henderson, Kimberly Yvette, thank you for joining us today. We're so blessed to have you as a part of our Spirit and Mind family. Always a blessing to see you joining us. Grateful. There's a lot happening in the medical community. It's in the news, so I don't know if there's anything that you want to update us on, Dr. Shepard, but we appreciate you having you with us.
Yeah, there's so much that is going on within the medical community. I'll just hit and just keep on moving. The vaccine continues to be rolled out. Baltimore again was in the spotlight. Unfortunately, we suffered another black eye because of emergent biotech solutions. They ended up mixing the wrong batch of vaccine, and 15 million doses had to be discarded, Bishop. That plant is right here in Baltimore. And let me tell you, people say, well, you see, that's the reason why I won't get the vaccine, because they don't know how to mix it right. Oh, come on, you all. That's what we should be happy about is about the transparency, number one. And number two, that there are safeguards in place to make sure that what you're getting is what you expect to be getting. And so that means that the procedures and protocols are working. That's what it really means. It just happened to, once again, happen in Baltimore. Baltimore has had its fair share, Bishop, of just so many different things that have occurred. But I want people to know the vaccine is safe. People are getting it. People are even concerned because they're saying, well, why are the people of color getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine more than others? Well, number one is because a lot of us are hesitant. And so if we can just get one dose, then let's go ahead and do that. So that's why the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been on mobile units to be able to go out into our communities, because also it's easier to transport. And if you think about it, many of us, we get our first dose, but then we have to schedule for the second dose, and we're working, we're doing other things, and we end up missing the second dose. So let's not be so skeptical in saying that we're getting an inferior product. That is not the truth. Just want to make sure people understand that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is just as equitable as the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine when it comes to preventing true illness and hospitalizations and death. All right. Let me just say this real quick. Our hearts and prayers continue to go out for those persons who've lost people, lost family members, I say, in Colorado. We had another mass shooting in California. And then even yesterday, there was a young man who ended up killing an officer, and another officer was injured at the Capitol, our U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Bishop, I mention it because in Colorado, and even in this case, I'm hearing that mental illness may have played a factor. What I want people to understand is that people who have mental illness, they tend to be the victims. They tend to be the victims. I'm not saying that they're always the victims. We have to be careful of when things like this go awry, that we say, oh my God, it's mental illness. And yes, mental illness does play a part in some of these, but in the vast majority, all right, the vast majority, when I say vast majority, I mean a large percentage, and may even approach as much as 90% of those who are mentally ill, they are the victims of the violence. Please don't begin to just say, well, someone has to be mentally ill, so they're going to be not violent. Let's think about all the other portrayals that have been put out there of people who are mentally ill and the police ended up hurting them or even killing them. Let's not forget about that. And so I just want to put out real quickly that we have to understand those who are mentally ill is a true illness, first of all, the true illness. And typically they're the ones who are the victims, not the assailants. All right. It is possible for them to be an assailant. All right. There's nothing 100%. There's nothing 100%. But we want to make sure to put into context, just like we did last week, and we may even do this later in the show, the difference between mental illness and emotional dysregulation. Okay. There's a difference between the two. So just want to highlight some of those things, Bishop. I think that's important for today. I'm going to stop there.
I think that's the segue into our conversation today, because this certainly has been an emotionally charged, I don't know, in one sense it's been an emotionally charged year still, an emotionally charged season, an emotionally charged month, and then an emotionally charged week. Let's start off spiritually. This is Passion Week. This is Holy Week, a week of great passion. This is a week of great love. It is a week of great controversy in its historical context. It is a week that is politically charged in the historical context. You had juries that were going on. Or as the old preachers used to say, from judgment hall to judgment hall. So there's legal situations. Calvary is a very spiritual story, first and foremost. And yet it is clear that systemic evil and political processes are a part of the presentation of the works of evil and even the plan of salvation. It is a week of betrayal. There is the Judas archetype. That is certainly the betrayal archetype. So it's relationships. It's selling out for 30 pieces of silver. It's compromised relationships. It's in relentless love. All of that it's the passion, etymologically related to the word pathos. And so it's an emotionally charged week in the spirit. And yet there's hope in it because actually we're in the Saturday, which symbolizes the silence after the tragedy. And yet in the silence of Saturday, we have to trust that a brighter day is coming. And so all of that is happening in the spirit realm in terms of significance. And so it is emotionally charged. And in our postmodern present time, just this week, you mentioned the mass shooting. There's the Capitol Police attack. The motive is still under investigation, but the general consensus at this point is that it is not so much a conspiratorial act as it was an emotional trigger or series of emotional triggers. There's the Derek Chauvin case, certainly emotionally charged. I have a transparent moment about that because certainly you understand legal processes have to happen, and you understand that the right of a defense is a part of the systemic operation. I teach critical thinking on the collegiate campus. So I certainly understand that every argument has a counter argument that has to be at least heard and considered. So intellectually, there's a part of me that gets that as a critical thinker. And yet emotionally, there are ways that you can be reliving this moment in ways that are emotionally charged. And so all of that is a part of it. There's the fallout from the Georgia voting bill, House Bill 531. That is, in one sense, a state issue, but it's so representative of national issues. Major League Baseball pulled out of the All-Star game in Atlanta in protest. 200 companies, Under Armour, Viacom, CBS, Coca-Cola, Delta are being pressured and have spoken out. And so there certainly is a lot of emotionally charged phenomena happening right now, which is probably a good segue for our series at this point, Living Your Best Life Emotionally. And last week we talked about, just in terms of a list, we talked about several things, kind of a healthy, emotionally healthy spirituality from Peter Scazzaro's classic work. But practice contemplative spirituality, we talked about that. Talked about being aware of your emotions and reactions. Talked about expressing your feelings or our feelings in appropriate ways, and keeping a gratitude journal. That's where we left off. That's the recap. Dr. Shepherd, I don't know if you have any recap moments or reflections on those recaps. So if you want to jump right into this week, it's in your hands, sir.
Yeah, I think we need to go ahead and I'll just preface what you've said, and I thank you for giving that list. I hadn't even thought about some of those things. These are some real issues that we have to face right now. I'm a part of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. This is the largest organization in the globe that certifies and is a part of the professional organizations for child and adolescent psychiatrists across the globe. And we are to have our annual conference in Atlanta in October. Guess what I got, Bishop, this week? We got a message to ask us would we go to Atlanta to the conference because of that bill. I wasn't expecting that, but let me tell you, this affects so many people of what is going on. And it is an emotionally charged issue. And so I had to think about it. I said, I hadn't even thought about, would I boycott, quote unquote, boycott going to our annual conference because it's in Atlanta? And so I had to think about that. And so you out there, you have to make certain decisions. That's the point that I'm getting at. That as we're going through these different concepts and principles today, there are decisions that you will have to face. There are decisions you will have to make this year, even this month, that will cause you to check your emotions, that will make sure that you're making the right decision, or it's necessarily always not the right decision, but making the appropriate decision for you, and to see if it's being handled because of your emotions, or handled because of different factors that are playing into your emotions. So hopefully I'm making sense on that. But when you mentioned that, Bishop, about the Georgia bill, yeah, I had a moment this week, and I told them in the survey, because they were asking the survey, I said, I have to ask myself, because right now I probably would not go. Truthfully, I probably would not go. But again, minds change. I have to think, about it. We have until October, but that's just something that we have to think about. Let me just say this too before we move to the principles with the Derek Chauvin trial. As your friendly psychiatrist, some of you all need to not watch that trial. I'll just say that. You don't really need to watch that trial. I know some people, they're very much engaged. The media definitely blows things up. But some of us, we're not in a place where we can really watch that. And we don't need to watch that because it's going to get us all bent out of shape. So just here, take it from me. Some of us do not need to watch that trial because it really could send us over the edge if we're not mentally stable.
Yeah.
I'm going to move forward, Bishop.
No, that's important, because that puts relevant context to what we've been discussing. Of course, we just finished. We gave some points, and the points are very philosophical. They're very ideological. Practice contemplative spirituality. Be aware of your emotions and reactions. But that's application of being aware of your emotions and reactions. So knowing when to turn something off. Knowing when the case has too many triggers. When you as young adults say, I'm feeling some kind of way. When you start becoming aware, and that's really that emotional intelligence piece, to say, how do I feel while I'm watching these images and these replays, and is it taking me back to a place? That's not to be unaware, certainly, because we have to be aware enough to exercise our civil rights to express discontent and to hold systems accountable. But there's a way to do that and be informed without reliving the moment and triggering things that are unhealthy. And so this is one more example of practical application of this idea. Say, well, I feel myself going there. Click. I'm going to have to kind of like disengage from this for a minute. So we talked about that, being aware, expressing your feelings. The next thing is in our list is taking care of our physical health. Take care of our physical health. Of course, the Bible is clear that we have the temple of the Holy Spirit, and 1 Thessalonians 5:23 says, "May the very God of peace sanctify you wholly, completely." And this holistic developmental process, he says, is a matter of your spirit, soul, and body. Pneuma, suke, soma, in the Koine Greek, your spirit, soul, and body. Spirit, pneuma, in the breath, the life, the God consciousness. Soul, suke, from which we get the word psyche and psychology, the mind, will, and emotions. And soma, your physical body. He says, may all of them be developed in this sanctification process. And that's a powerful statement in terms of holistic wellness. And so it's very important. And Dr. Shepherd, will you talk to us a little bit about the importance of taking care of our physical health as a matter of emotional wellness?
Absolutely, because the two are tied in. We must remember that your physical health is always tied into your mental health. It's tied into your emotional health. And I do use that word always because you cannot escape one from the other. The way in which God made us, he made us to be physical beings, emotional beings. He wants our mental well-being to be able to help us to live our best life. So let's think about it. There are certain conditions that if you're physically challenged, or if you're even physically kind of out of balance, it will affect you emotionally. Case in point, diabetes. When you are in the process of a diabetic crisis, your blood sugar could be too low, your blood sugar could be too high. You'll start to do things, even speak things that you normally wouldn't do. And again, it could be a source of physical health. I've seen that when persons whose blood sugars are quite low, and they begin to talk, as they say, talk out of their head, and they begin to do things. So that just lets you know that it's a physical issue, but then it manifests as something that could be seen as emotional or a mental issue. Again, I distinguish between the two because there definitely is a difference. Let's even look at people who have issues with their thyroid, with his or her thyroid. Your thyroid could be underproducing or overproducing. When you have a hypothyroid, that means it's underproducing. Hypothyroidism, it can be a source of depression. You might think that you actually have depression due to an emotional issue, due to an environmental issue, but actually it's because your thyroid is out of order. That's why you have to make sure that you go to a trained professional. That's why you need to go to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists go to medical schools. That's the biggest difference. And it is a significant difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I went to medical school. I'm able to help determine if there's a medical cause for your emotional, for your mental health issues. And hypothyroidism does occur. I have patients now. We were trying various things. And I said, have you been to your primary care doctor lately? And they said, no. And we come to find out it was an issue with their thyroid. I could have been working on them for years. It would not have gotten better. And you need to hear me on this, because there are certain things that physically that are wrong with people. And you're trying to do something about it spiritual. You're trying to do something about it some other alternative way. And really, importantly, it's due to your physical health. Yeah. Oh man, Bishop, I'm feeling a little bit charged up now. You can have a hyperthyroidism. Too much of it can cause you to be in quote unquote an manic episode, to where you start speaking real fast. People who have hyperthyroidism, they get very anxious. They get overly excited. They can be hyperactive. And again, it's not due to a spiritual component. Since we're talking about spirit and mind, it's not due to something else or something that they ate. It literally is a physical condition. My point here is that we must examine our bodies. God has given us these bodies that we must take care of. It doesn't make any sense for you to be at all night prayer and praying in all the prayer meetings and you haven't been to your doctor in a whole year. That's out of balance. You're not in line with the will of God. Yes, I said it. You're not in line with the will of God. We must make sure that there is balance in our lives. We must make sure that we're taking care of our bodies. You're not going to be any good to the Lord in fighting on the battlefield if your physical body, your physical health is not as at its optimal peak as much as possible. We must turn the tide in this pandemic to not just focusing in on our spiritual health. Yes, we do a wonderful job on that, but God wants us to live so much higher. He wants us to do so much better so that we can be true armies. Now, if now I was not in the military, so I can't speak too much about it. But let me tell you, when they examine you in the military, I do know this, they do a mental wellness check on you. I know this when you join the police academy, they do a mental wellness and they do a physical wellness check on you because they understand the overlap. They understand how crucial all of these components work together. So when we talk about physical health, make sure you have done your due diligence. When I say do your due diligence, I mean you've gone to your doctor, you've gone to your primary care doctor. If you don't have a primary care doctor, you need to find one. Don't let this year go past and you haven't been to your primary care doctor. Don't let this year pass and you haven't gotten your your annual screenings. Bishop, I saw, and I'm about to end right here. I believe it was last Sunday, when they had the NAACP awards. It was either last Sunday or the Sunday before. But Chadwick Boseman's wife came on. Oh my God, Bishop, it was so emotional. And she accepted an award on his behalf, but she changed it very quickly to tell the people about how she wants them to get screened for colon cancer. Bishop, it broke my heart. She said, I don't want you all to be like me and suffer the loss of a spouse, suffer the loss of now the children without a father because of physical health. We haven't maintained our physical health. She went there, Bishop. It was powerful. I mean, literally, I was in the kitchen and stopped in my tracks as I heard her talk about the need for colon cancer screenings. If you're a Black person and you're a 45 years old or older and you have not had a colonoscopy, today you need to go and call your primary care doctor. I don't know if they're open. Some primary care doctors are open on Saturdays, but Monday, call, because you need to get it. If you're a Black person, 45 years old, when I went to see my doctor the other week, I said, doc, I'm approaching soon that age. And so I need to make sure that I get all the screenings that I'm supposed to have. And so I want to make sure that I'm keeping myself up to date. Whatever screenings that you're supposed to have within that age range, we want to get those things done because it's a part of your physical health. But when your physical health is out of order, it will definitely show off on you mentally and emotionally.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's put that in context to the Spirit and Mind mission is so many times again we live in a large society, and in a large society, in order to operate, there's the division of labor. And so we get very compartmentalized sometimes in our thinking. And the First Thessalonians 5:23 is really a holistic approach to wellness. And all of these things are important parts of a wellness ecosystem. So, and now this is where the theology comes in. In the theological perspective, they're not in competition. First Thessalonians. So when we say, go do this, but may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, your whole spirit, soul, and body. They're not in competition. They are in complementary relationship. They're part of the same wellness ecosystem. So going to the doctor is not in competition with being spiritual. It is a part of being spiritual. So taking care of your body, our bodies as the temple, that is not something that is contrary to spirituality. It is actually a component. There's several times in the Bible when God gives instructions and the presupposition is of the text that we have already done some other things that didn't happen in the sanctuary. Sometimes we limit the definition of spirituality to the mechanics of what we do in preaching, or the mechanics of what we do in worship leading, or the mechanics of what we do in praise. And we can have those parts, but it is just as spiritual to do the other part. So I was saying that to say there are times when we can't even obey God fully if we haven't taken care of mind and body. For example, when God tells Moses how to build the tabernacle, he gives him some very specific measurements. The presupposition is that Moses has already incorporated some mathematical concepts into his understanding before this glorious cloud moment. He tells Noah to build an ark. The presupposition is that Noah is already fluent in some very basic educational processes. When he tells Jeremiah to go to the potter's house or get up and go to the pool of Siloam, there's a presupposition that there's physical capabilities to do so. And so when we take care of our bodies and minds, imagine if God had given Moses instructions to build the tabernacle, and he said, wait a minute, let me go back to Pharaoh's house and find out. Let me get the abacus. And no, but he had to maximize the season in Pharaoh's house as a part of his spiritual development.
Right.
So I don't want to separate those things as if they're in competition and limit being spiritual to the quickening and the glossolalia and the speaking in tongues. And all of that is important and has its place, and the dance, but we can't just settle for the things that are more performance oriented and not see the other things that are preparatory as equally as spiritual.
Right.
So that I have the stamina to preach when I stand, so that I have the stamina to breathe when I sing. If I'm a singer, there's certain ways I have to take care of my body, and certain things and certain substances I can't take in because they affect my ability to do what I'm anointed to do. So I'm just trying to make sure we don't separate these as if taking care of my body is over here and taking care of my emotional intelligence is over here, and taking care of my spirituality is what I do in church. No, no, no. It's all spiritual.
That's right.
And so I just wanted to emphasize that as part of our mission with spirit in mind and keeping the spirit in mind.
And it takes a leader who knows how to be able to balance that. And you have to be intentional on that, because just like we prefer to do things that we're more comfortable with, you as a leader, you have to push people to do things that they're not comfortable with doing. That's what I do to the people who I work with in the families. I have to push them. I have to be pushed by those who mentor me. We must be intentional. I want you to be intentional this year. I want you to be intentional this year in 2021 in tackling an area in your life that you normally would not tackle. I want you to be intentional in this year of moving beyond the comfortability and getting those physical checkups, getting those things that you know that you need to have done. Because when you do that as a leader, you're going to now see greater growth. You're now going to see yourself be more well-rounded. So I'll just stop it there. But I just want to just put that caveat in there. As leaders, for those who are leaders, and all of us should be leaders, we must push the people who we are leading and be intentional and not just focusing on those areas that we like or that are their favorites, but we must be balanced.
Yes, yes. And if the term leader bothers you because you don't have a title, it's about more than that, but let's use the term that our millennials and post-millennials use. You're an influencer.
That's right.
So it means you have the power of influence, even if it's just in the circle of your social media posts. You're a social media influencer.
Mm-hmm.
Use that to consider using that to encourage this balanced approach. That's not all. I'm not spiritual when I'm in the worship service, and then physical when I'm in the gym, and then
Right.
And so that kind of balance is really what influence is all about, and encouraging people. Bias is a part of the human condition. So we all have biases and ways in which we lean, and the pursuit of balance is a lifelong pursuit, which is why we need those pushes. Sometimes it could be, all right, you need somebody to say, you're too in your feelings today. Think. You need somebody to say, you're too in your head. Live from your heart. Howard Thurman talked about the importance of living with head and heart. And so they aren't in competition. They really can be in collaboration and complement each other when we consider. And that's a good leader will help us to, or good influencer will help us to consider those internal family systems to kind of be aware of those things. So one is we talked about taking care of your physical health. Another is, which might be, we're talking about influencers and leadership. So the other one might kind of segue. Another thing to living your best life emotionally is connecting with others and maintaining an accountability circle. The wisdom of the proverb writer says that there's safety in a multitude of counsel. And so who we hang around. I love the way Howard Kleinbell puts it. The great pastoral counselor says we are formed, deformed, or transformed by our relationships. What an incredible way to do a relationship audit. Forming, transforming, deforming relationships. And I've said that before, but isn't that essentially the story of this Passion Week? Isn't that the story of on the anthropological level, human development, that we were made in the image and likeness of God. That's a formative relationship, deformed by serpentine relationship, and then transformed by sacrificial relationship in this week of Calvary. That's really what it is: formed, deformed, transformed. Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So, how are we transformed? We're transformed by the renewing of our mind through a transformative relationship. So, I'm just trying to say it matters who we hang around. That's just how I'll start that off spiritually. Dr. Shepherd, please chime in.
Yeah, accountability circles are so necessary. And it's one of the things that we've talked about on this show about how to be able to reset yourself mentally. But you want to make sure that you are around people who have your best interests at heart, who are going to be able to cover you, and who are not going to sabotage. And you find that out through, trial, and making sure that you are around people who you can count on, who you can trust. But you also want to make sure that these people are able to cover you. As humans, you may make an error. You don't want to be in an accountability circle who's going to blast your errors in public. That's not the right way. And then you also want to be around people who are balanced. I have watched where people have literally taken on the emotional issues of other people in their accountability circle. It's amazing, Bishop, how I've watched certain people become depressed as other people in that circle became depressed. That's amazing. I've watched other people have become angry as another person who's in that group becomes angry. That's something that we need to be careful of. You need to be around people who, again, will challenge you, who will cover you, but who will also help you to move forward in areas that you know that God will want you to move forward in. So be careful. Screen the people. This is a wonderful time in the pandemic. Wonderful time to begin this year of looking at your accountability circles. Well, Dr. Shepherd, I don't have an accountability circle. I don't know who should be in there. I don't know the criteria for that. I don't. I heard somebody out there who said just that. Well, those people who are in your accountability circles are those people who you are already hanging around. Who are those people who you call when you're in trouble? Who are those people who you call when you need someone to pray for you? Who are those people who you call when you need some advice? Those are the people who are part of your accountability circle. So many of us already have it. We may just give it a term that you may not use, but those are the people in your accountability circles. And there should be people in your accountability circle. And I was just telling a friend of mine this as he was telling me this past week how he was writing a book. And so he was mentioning how he'd been writing a book almost 17 years now. I said, wow. But that encouraged me. It really did. It encouraged me to say, okay, Shepherd, it's time to start writing. It's time to continue to write. It's time to write that book. And so this person didn't even realized that just by them talking about their struggles encouraged me to make sure that I do that. That's what I'm talking about with accountability circles. Because and Bishop mentioned this just a few minutes ago, when you're going through and when you are emotionally charged, you need to have someone who can pull you back in. I've seen where people will make decisions because they're upset, they're angry, or they're sad or depressed. And you need to have someone who can come in, be sensitive enough to tell you, hey, my sis, hey, bro, I think you need to consider something else. You may have been just a little bit too emotionally charged. I've seen the flip side too, Bishop, and I need to go here. I've seen where accountability circles say, hey, you don't have to take that. You've been taking this for long enough. You need to do something about this and stop allowing people to walk over you. That's what I'm talking about for accountability circles. Many times we like to focus in on that other part where when we're out of balance. But there are some times when the accountability circles need to tell you you need to act, you need to move on, you need to move forward. There's something you need to do. So there is a balance. I love that word balance today, because when we are emotionally balanced, God will give us the ability to handle situations in such a more appropriate manner.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why I encourage relationship audits. And we've talked about this in a previous show, but it's important when I say accountability circles. There's different contexts of accountability circles. There are parental figures, there are pedagogues, there are peers, and there are proteges. I said that before, but there are parental figures and there are pedagogues. The Bible says you have many instructors, but not many fathers. So parental figures impart. Just by being in their presence, you're just picking up things like a child in the room with parents. And so teachers are instructional and systematic impartation of knowledge, and sometimes seasonal. As you know, teachers are taught to terminate at the end of a semester. And so teachers may be seasonal. Thus, you have many instructors. Parental figures are different. So parental accountability from parental figures, pedagogues, which is a big, long word for teachers, peers, which means friends who see us, who talk to us, if you will, as not ontological equals, but functional equals. So you need those kinds of persons. And the tabernacle knows one of my favorite wisdom sayings is Proverbs 27:6. Proverbs 27:6 says, "The wounds of a friend are faithful, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy." So just because somebody strokes our ego with kisses and feel good compliments doesn't always mean that they are the circle for accountability. And just because somebody tells us something that is a hard truth doesn't mean that they aren't for us, because faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. And so you have to take those kind of things to be introspective. And we need some people to say to us, hey, you need to move on, or hey, you think you got a little hot-headed right there. Hey, you need to calm down. Hey, you were a little unfair. All those things are important. Because I had a counseling professor who said something I never forgot, that we seldom see our own pathology. And so the scriptural equivalent of that is Jesus saying, you can see a splinter in someone else's eye, but we struggle to see beams in our own. And so you need some people who can say to us, this is what I see. And so having those kinds of relationship audits. Is this seasonal? Is this time transcending? Does this person know who I am now? All those kind of things are helpful in our emotional experiences, because we need those. So they're parents, there's teachers. In fact, even when we've arrived, and then I'll stop with this, but pastors have pastors. And look at the wisdom of biology, that parents have parents. And sometimes, you know, that sometimes grandparents have to step in
Right.
And fill in the gap. And sometimes the parents get like, well, you weren't like that with me. You would have with me for this, but it's called grandparenting for a reason. Our skills and parental skills have expanded, and we ideally, all things being ideal, have more parental tools in our kit to work with. And so we fill in the gaps and step in. So parents have parents. Look at the wisdom of biology. So too do teachers have teachers, and pastors have pastors, and therapists have therapists, because that kind of accountability just kind of helps us to stay sharp in what we do. So the illusion of thinking that we'll at some point be completely autonomous without accountability and relationship is elusive and not healthy. I would say, because there's a reason why no matter how many degrees we have on our walls, no matter how many titles we have, there should be someone. And that's why it's important even to have proteges. Even as teachers, we're accountable to our students. Right. Even as pastors, we have an account. Even as parents, there's a level of accountability to our children. Wherever there is covenant relationship, on whatever level, there is mutual accountability. So that's it, Dr. Shepard, with that one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's go on to, I think we have one more concept.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Find purpose, living your best life emotionally. Take care of your physical health, connect with others, maintain an accountability circle. Find purpose and meaning. Don't just plan. What I mean by that is Proverbs says it clearly again. This is a very proverbial episode, but Proverbs says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that will prevail. Because ultimately, from a theological perspective, life is all about the purpose. Or as Viktor Frankl put it, the psychiatrist, he called it logos therapy, or the therapy of finding logic, reason, purpose, and meaning in life. Not just existing, finding meaning even in the suffering of life. To go with Frankl's proposition that there is strength in finding meaning, that even if I have to, the theological equivalent of logos therapy, theologically, because often we're saying the same things with different nomenclature, the theological perspective is what is called redemptive suffering. Redemptive suffering means that even my struggles have a purpose, that not some things, but all things are working together for good. Or as Joseph put it, that even what adversarial forces meant for evil, God meant it for good. And this ability to implement this understanding of purpose. Years ago, the Westminster Catechism of the Anglican Church asked the question, what is the chief end of man? What are we here for? What's our reason? And the answer that they came up with in the shorter catechism was, the chief end of humanity is to glorify God. That means to testify of God's active presence and power in our lives, from the pit to the palace, to the prisons of life, that God is glorified through our testimony. And so there's one thing to make plans. There were plans I had in my heart. If you had asked me 15 years ago, now pastoring 12 years, if you had asked me 15 years ago, what was I going to be doing in 2021, I had a whole different answer. If you'd asked me in 1995, my dream job was to play for Anita Baker. Anita, if you're out there, you know, but I knew all the songs. I stayed home. I practiced. I knew giving you the best that I got and everything. And yet I was still saved. Hallelujah. But that was my dream job. So you can start planning for that. But, you know, if you'd asked me in 2005, I would have said then I'm going to be a full-time counselor. That's what I was in school for. That's what I was going for. And then one phone call from a senior in ministry pastored me through that moment. Say, you're a preacher and you're called to preach. And the Lord showed me to you. He showed you. And so it was like, are you sure? He said, yeah, pray, because I know what the Lord said. And that's why I'm doing the Lord sent. That's why it's important to have that accountability circle. And I was pastored into my calling by my predecessor. And so that's so very important. So there's planning and then there's purpose. Ideally, our planning is in line with God's purpose. But when our plans are not in line, the wisdom of the rabbinical school of ancient Judaism has a saying in the Talmud that says, we plan and God laughs. So like, okay, that's what you think. And that's our youth, you know? So it's just this continual thing to pursue purpose. And I'll close with this. Here's a great example. When David was a young man, he went to take his brothers some lunch. That was the plan. But he saw a giant that he had and he ended up in a fight, and that was God's purpose. Right. The plan was for him to be a lunch carrier, God's purpose was for him to be a giant slayer.
Mm.
And I'm not preaching, but right there, it means that God's plan is already so much bigger than our plans. And then as David got wise in it, what's interesting is he just went out and fought Goliath. He just, because you're young, you just do stuff. But compare David when he's older and at Ziklag, and the enemy has hit him with an unexpected blow, and he's older and wiser. Before he goes and fights his battle against the Amalekites, he says, Lord, shall I go up? And if so, will I be successful? Meaning, I got a plan, but is this part of your purpose? And that's the difference spiritually in wisdom when we start lining our plans up with the discovery of God's purpose. So that's where I'll stop right there. So living your best life, but Dr. Shepherd, add to it, fix it up.
Yes, sir. I was thinking that sometimes we make plans and then we ask God to bless those plans when it's not his purpose for us. And so we want to be in the will of God. We have to make sure that we don't get upset. Even with what I was ascribed in running for the trustee board, I'll just utilize that particular example. When I was running for that, that was my plan. But again, was it just my plan? And God said, I have other plans for you. One thing I love about God is, at least in my life, that he will allow certain plans for me to make, but he will not bless and he will not sanction those plans that he has not granted permission for me to go into. Now, there are certain things that the Lord will, and his permissive will, allow me to do. And they may be my plans. And then I'll come to find out, something ain't right with that. You all know what I'm talking about. And you need to be able to make sure that when you hear the word of the Lord, and when you hear his voice, if you've gone forward in some plans, don't be stubborn when you see the Lord is not blessing those plans. That's the time to say, in 2021, I want you to hear it the first time. Well, I'm just going to press on through. No, stop. God hasn't sanctioned it. God has not blessed it. And so I'm okay with that. Even with this, the election, I told people that the question that I've been, or the phrase that I've been saying is, how do you lose but yet stay on top? That's because I understand that it was my plan, but it was nothing that, I wouldn't say nothing, but it wasn't what God wanted for me in this time in my life. So I'm just giving some real practical application to this, because your plans don't always line up with God's purpose for your life. And so we have to be careful of what we're planning and stop asking God to bless our plans when that may not be what he has for us. Bishop, as you was speaking, I was thinking about the scripture in Jeremiah 29:11, which says, oh, man, it just went blank on me, and I hate to mess up verses. For I know the thoughts that I have towards you. All right, thoughts and plans, but thoughts that I have toward you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, and to bring you to an expected end. And so, make sure that your plans line up with God's purpose. How do I know God's plan is for me? I'm just telling you now that there's an ease that goes along in my life when God has favored those plans, or God has sanctioned those plans. The plans are not easy to go through. There's challenges that go along with it. But let me tell you, even though there's the challenges, God always provides me with the ways how to be able to overcome those challenges. It was God's plan for me to become a medical doctor. I know it was. And he has made it quite clear and evident to me. Does that mean that I just walked into medical school and aced all the exams? Because it's God's will. That's how we do sometimes. Well, God, I know you. So that means I'm going to get all A's. The devil is a lie. That's not how it works. I didn't get all A's. I didn't get all excellence. But I knew it was what God had planned for me. So you must find purpose. And I need to just harp on that just a little bit, because sometimes we think that because God gave us the purpose, that it's going to be an easy or cakewalk. You're just going to ease right on in. No, my sister, no, my brother. That's not how it works. And it will challenge you emotionally. That's the thing that we're talking about. It will frustrate you. It will cause you to become angry. It will cause you to become despondent. And what I'm telling you is that God's purpose can frustrate you. Oh, there's certain people in throughout the Word, and I don't even have to go to the Bible. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There's certain things that God will have. Uh, you want to go this way. I hear Jonah coming out a little bit now. He wanted to go this way, but God said that it was not right. And once He made easy God's way, he even had to allow the the changing, if you would, of God's mind about how He was going to handle the people of Nineveh, because Jonah got mad with God. He said, "Well, you said you're going to destroy me." God said, "I'm going to have mercy." We must be able to be flexible enough in our plans that God can guide us the way in which He wants us to go. And I'm learning that day by day. There are certain things that I thought I would be able to have done by this time. And I can hear somebody, man, Dr. Shepard, you did a lot, but there's more to do. That's why I'm still alive, because there's more to do. But we must be flexible so that God's purpose will shine through. And let me tell you about God's purpose. When God's purpose shines through your life, you don't have to tell nobody about your plans. People don't have to wonder about why you're where you're at. It will be evident. You don't have to announce yourself. I'm tired of people announcing themselves as to who they are and what they're doing and what. You don't have to do that. You don't have to let somebody know that you're the physician. You don't have to let somebody know that you're the great prophet. God's purpose will shine through you. It will radiate through you, you all. And let me tell you, God will get all the glory and honor.
Absolutely.
Dr. Hayes, who is a faithful supporter of Spirit and Mind, he has a wonderful testimony out there he's sharing. He mentions that he never would have imagined that he would have earned his ED, doctor of education, at the age of 49. Fast forward at 59, he has 4 degrees, but credited all to God's prompting, serving after 22 years in Air Force. Isn't that amazing? Let me tell you, it's not too late. God's purpose never expires. So I want to just encourage people. Thank you, Pastor Dr. Hayes, there over in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio. Thank God for you and thank God for your witness. And so please be encouraged. Bishop, I'm going to end right there.
Yep. Thank you, Spirit and Mind family. Thank you for your witness. Thank you, Spirit and Mind family, for your engagement as well. It's all about God's purpose, and that's what we talked about. The glory shall be revealed in us. And so even if you're in your purpose, it doesn't mean you won't have a challenge. It doesn't mean you won't have challenges. Sometimes we just see the end of a thing. But I started out talking about Joseph. Joseph, when he shared his dream, he said, he told his brothers, we were in the field working, and we were binding sheaves. And then I noticed that my sheaves stood above yours. And so you could easily, there's a psych thing, how you focus on that. If you just see the end of the thing, and I'm going to end up with the sheaves, but what you missed was, said we were in the field working. What does that work look like? Well, there's metaphor, the work. There's a pitfall in the work. There's a prison in the work. there's being misspoken about, falsely charged in the work. But it's all part of the work. For this, we know that all things work together for good. So somebody be encouraged. God will support his purpose. God's purpose has no expiration date. The Tabernacle knows this because they hear me quote that all the time. This Sunday is Resurrection Sunday. We're coming up on Pentecost Sunday, when the Holy Spirit fell on the day of Pentecost and blessed the church. They said, Peter said, this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. And he said something interesting. He said, your old people will dream dreams, which means that when the Holy Ghost comes, he doesn't come to cancel your dreams. If you old and you got the whole, whatever you think you old, you got the Holy Ghost is in all. It's not too late to dream. It is not too late to pursue, because one of the manifestations of the Spirit of God, who is a life-giving, quickening spirit, is the same God who talked to Abraham at 75. The same God who talked to Sarah in her senior years is the same God that says, if I let you live, I still got more work for you to do. So God's got a reason for you being here. And we're so grateful. And his spirit is in you to quicken the work that he's given you. It may not be the exact same way. You may be a mentor, but that's still work to do. You may be coaching those who can run around a little faster, but you still got work to do, because as long as you are living, God has purpose. So I pray that the glory of God will be revealed in each and every one of you. May the blessing continue to make you rich.
Richard, let me just show you this real quick and show our listeners. So I've been really caught up by this. It is the Psychiatric Times. I'm a faithful follower of this, but this really just blessed me. So many people think that psychiatrists and medical folks, we are so pessimistic and negative. Well, let me just show you the front page of Psychiatric Times, the optimistic prognosis for 2021. I want to give you what the optimistic prognosis for 2021 is that God wants you to live your best life. That's all we have done over this series. That is the prognosis for 2021. God wants you to live your best life. And even those who are in medical professions, even those who are in ministry, that is the optimistic prognosis for 2021. Yes, you can live your best life this year, right now.
Have a wonderful Resurrection Sunday. That's the reason why we can live our best lives. You can reach Dr. Shepherd at the information that is on your screen. And please feel free to reach out. And if you have any subjects you'd like for us to discuss, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Love your feedback. Love your engagement. And again, thank you so much. Listen, tell somebody we'll be here next week as the Lord gives us grace. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Spirit in Mind.